Hello, bar exam takers. I'm Lisa Duncanson, your bar exam guru. I promised in a previous video that I would cover how to approach the MBEs. With the amount of time you have left right now for the bar exam, we're now in June, the latter part of June, so the bar exam is literally just a month away. So in the earlier video I did this evening on the essays and how to improve your issue spotting and improve your writing, I didn't really get much into the MBEs, but I mentioned a book that you should get, and that is called Strategy and Tactics for the MBE. It's written by Stephen Emanuel, who is brilliant, and it is published by Wolters Kluwer. I have no financial interest in these materials other than how it affects and helps my students. So today I spent hours and hours and hours on the phone today taking calls from people who are nervous about the bar exam. Not my students. Well, I'm sure they have some nervousness. They have me and our staff to support them. But I got a lot of calls today. We have a bar exam cram session coming up, and people are calling to find out, what that would be like for them and how that might improve their success. And what I was shocked by is how little people know about how to truly study for the bar exam. Whether they were to take my bar exam cram session or not, they're lost. And I think most people, without the information I provided in my earlier video and what I'm going to provide right now, really don't have a clue about how to be successful on the written portion, about how to prepare for that properly, and definitely don't have the right information about what is required to succeed on those MBEs, which, as you well know, is 50% of your score now and has been for some time. So the Strategy and Tactics book, 7th edition, is the one you want to get. I'm not a fan of their extra book. I'll just leave it at that. Trust me, just get the 7th edition book. You can find that through them directly, or you can get it on Amazon. It's the best investment you can make in your bar exam and prep. It's such an amazing book. So, but here's what, I've spoken to so many students come our way that have taken the bar many times, sometimes just a couple of times, sometimes 5 times, sometimes 10 times, sometimes more. And it's really frustrating to see what their frustrations have been. And these are, the bar exam is not an IQ test. It's just a test that's standardized that you really need to know how to study for, and you really need to have the correct materials. So my earlier video was about reviewing past exams, released answers, and to really get familiar with what the bar examiners are looking for, as opposed to spending your time reviewing, really long outlines and model answers that were written by, people who had 6, 7, 10 hours to write them. That's not realistic to try to achieve, and it isn't even what the bar examiners want. So moving on to the MBEs, this book is amazing for a few reasons. Number one, they have the best explanations of any product. I don't care about the national courses. I'm not going to name any, but none of them even come close to this. And the online programs, none of them come close to this at all. I do like AdaptiBar for one reason. We beta tested it in 2007 and used it for a couple of years in our program. I did stop using it because I think the Strategy and Tactics book is better with the definitions, with the explanations, and that you can learn. And they have another feature, which I'll get into in a moment. And I'm not trying to slam AdaptiBar. If you have it, there are uses for it. But I would want you to get the Strategy and Tactics book and work on that first, and then use AdaptiBar once you reach a certain score. Because AdaptiBar, one of the great things they do is they use the released questions. But I'll be completely honest, and I like the product, but the answer explanations are really leave a lot to be desired. They're just not clear enough. you might as well just be told it's wrong. I mean, there's just not enough there to learn, and you need to learn right now. Most people think I have to do 50 MBEs a day. That's fine when you actually have an affinity for picking the right answer, but you're not going to pick the right answer by just doing countless MBEs over and over. So the Strategy and Tactics book has a couple of features that are amazing. First, they have excellent explanations, and I would read every single explanation whether you got the question right or not, because there's so much substantive material in there that you'll see on another MBE that'll affect you in a positive way. The other thing is that this book has something amazing called Strategy and Tactics for each topic. First, they start with, and you need to read this section. So many people, when I talk to them after they've taken the bar many times, they, oh, I used that book. I said, did you? So did you read the introduction section in the Roman numeral section that's tedious? No. Did you read the introductory sections for each subject? No, I just did the MBEs. Okay, well, you're going to get a certain distance with that, but here's how amazing their introductory sections, yes, tedious, but well worth your time, are. In the intro to the MBEs in general, one of the things that they cover are modifiers. Modifiers in the call to question. And those are words like unless, only if. So there's others, but just to give you an example, they teach you by just you're reading this material how to rewrite the question in your head to get the correct answer. Because as soon as you're reading the fact pattern, I think I know this. And I've had this same experience. I've taken 2 different bar exams where I had to take the MBEs, and I passed both of them. I didn't expect to pass the second one that I took, but I did. And one of the reasons why is that once you learn that level of MBE ability, it doesn't go away. So this book, the general intro for the MBE, gives you lots of tips and tricks and insights. Then you go to each subject has its own strategy and tactics section. Now the book goes in an order that I would not advise. They start with con law. I would want you to go, I tell my students to start with torts, then contracts, criminal law, and criminal procedure, which are dealt with together in one section, and then move on to any of the other subjects. It's better to start learning their approaches and how to do these MBEs in the best way possible so that your scores improve in the quickest way possible by doing the less abstract subjects first. Contracts can be a bit abstract, but it's still much easier than property, much easier than evidence for most people, and much easier than constitutional law, and probably easier than civil procedure. So start with torts, read the intro for torts, then do each of the questions. But here's how you're going to do it. I have my students go through the questions 3 times between their start and the bar exam. And the reason I have them do that is so that they can get scores of 90, 95%, sometimes 100%. And initially students would kind of fight me on this a little bit. Well, why would I want to do that? I'm only getting them right because I've memorized the questions. Not really. And even if that's the case, that's great, because whatever the bar examiners think and decide is a taking by force such that there is a robbery, those facts are never going to change. They'll write a different question. It won't look exactly the same, but what is going to pin down a robbery answer of yes is going to be the same facts that they always use to show that it was a taking by force. That never changes. So it doesn't matter what your outline says is a taking by force. It doesn't matter what your fantastic professor said at Harvard if you went there. It doesn't matter what I think is a taking by force. It matters what the NCBE, the National Conference of Bar Examiners, thinks is a taking by force. So you should only do MBE questions. Only do MBE release questions from the NCBE. you should go to ncbex.org, ncbex.org. It's an excellent resource. You can get additional tests that you can do online for a very modest fee. And they also have a new guide that they published in 2020 at the end of the year. And it's very helpful. I spoke with one of their staff who told me about it and said to please share it with students. So I'm sharing that with you. So when my students do the book 3 times, they get to a level of proficiency, and I rarely ever see a student who has 88% to 95% right on the MBEs, which is very achievable by doing the questions 3 times. And it's not like these are thousands of questions. There's anywhere from 58 to 73 questions per topic, because that's all the bar examiners have released. So they have all the released questions that have ever been released, and any bar prep company worth their salt would have a license for that. We have a license for it. But I would go straight to this book because their explanations are just amazing. So one of the problems with national bar prep companies is that they all include these questions, but unfortunately a lot of them write their own questions, and they don't do this to mess people up. They do it because, well, if you have more questions, that makes more sense. But the problem is it dilutes your knowledge of what they're truly looking for, what the NCBE really wants you to know and be able to handle. It's not a good idea to dilute those questions by reviewing other questions that are supposedly harder or just, written by the companies. And unfortunately, often you have no idea which are the real questions and which are the made-up questions. And so I don't recommend using those courses, MBEs, at all. I would, if you're taking Barbary, which has a lot of good things that they provide, I would stay away from the MBEs and get this book. If you're taking any bar prep course, Themis, whatever, anything, Kaplan, do the MBEs from the Strategy and Tactics book and do them 3 times. The other thing I want you to do is when you first get through the Strategy and Tactics for the general MBE approaches, and then you go through TORTS, your first time going through the TORTS MBEs, you want to do each MBE one at a time. And that sounds crazy. I know I need to be timing myself, and I need to do as many as I can under time conditions. Well, sure, when you get to a certain level of success, that's a great idea. But if you think about it this way, if you do one MBE and check the answer and find out that you got it right, you confirm that correctness right then and there. And you should read all of the explanations because it may help you with the next question. If you do 20 questions and then check your answers, you're not really going to go back over those questions that well. They won't be fresh in your mind, and it will take much longer for you to make the corrections you need to make. So when you do get a question wrong, you're going to spend time reviewing the answer explanations, and you will write a flashcard if it isn't obvious to you. You'll make notes in the book, whatever you need to do to clarify that, because I'm telling you, you will only get about 50% of the MBEs correct by just knowing the substantive law. You have to know the technique and strategies to handling these questions and figuring out what answer choices are correct. And once you start doing the MBEs one at a time, you do TORTS, then you go on to the next subject, you do the whole book that way. Then you go back and you repeat those same questions by doing 10 or 20 in a row. Start with 10 and see how you do. Compare your percentages from the first time through to the second time through. So go through all the subjects one at a time, one MBE at a time, then go back for your second pass. Now there's also a 200 set of mixed questions in the back. And what I have my students do is after they finish all of the MBEs and they've read all the introductions and completed the first part of the book, I have them do the first 50 set of MBEs, 1 through 50, and leave the 150 for later. You should expect to see your scores drop, probably significantly, because you've just done single topics only. And when you go from single topics to mixed MBEs, you usually see a dip in your scores. And that's okay, that's normal. So don't get frustrated, don't be punitive about this. I mean, when I was studying for the bar exam right out of law school, every moment of my studies, I felt like I could just throw the books out the window, that I was going to fail. That's normal. I studied really hard, but I knew that I was still at risk of failing. And anybody is, I was very lucky because I had that strategies and tactics book. I used it in law school, and it was how I improved my MBEs. So I used it for the bar exam. And I also got the MBEs off of the NCB website, which you had to buy, and just got a paper copy. They didn't have, well, it wasn't email when I took the bar exam, but you could order them. And so anyway, I digress. So I really want you to trust this approach. You do have time to do it this way. And it's going to require a significant amount of time focusing on it. But if you do that as opposed to focusing on this book and the strategies and tactics for each subject and doing the MBEs and carefully reading the explanations for each of those questions, you will do much better than just reading an outline. And then you will have a set of new materials that you will memorize. By doing those MBEs, eventually you'll start getting them correct at a much higher rate, but you'll still want to go back over the notes. And then one last thing about this. I have a student from a few years ago. She bought 4 of these books. I guess money was not an issue, because she wanted to mark each one up, and she did them 4 times in less than 2 months, which is kind of insane. But hey, if it works and they pass, then, that's fine. But I would recommend that you buy 1 book and just don't mark it up, or mark it up in such a way that you won't go back to oh yeah, I picked B. So you could, just keep that in mind. All right, so that's my advice about the MBEs. I didn't intend to slam anybody's courses. I think when courses write extra questions, they think that's going to benefit you. My opinion is it does not. Students gravitate towards that because it makes sense to do more MBEs, but only if they're actually the MBEs written by the National Conference of Bar Examiners. Okay, so please trust me on this. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Our office number is 213-529-0990, 213-529-0990. And you can always send me an email at barexamguru@yahoo.com. You can also message me or make a comment on the blog. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is just growing. And let me know if you have any questions. And all the best to everyone who's taking the bar exam now and in the future. If you're a law student watching this, then, pay attention. It'll help you. So all the best to everyone studying for the bar, and good luck.